My name is Olivia Carter. I'm 28 years old, and this is how I took revenge on the person who destroyed my life. Not just once, but twice. Olivia's voice trembles as she describes the moment that replays in her head every night. She walks into her own apartment, early from work, and catches her fiancé, Mason, in their bed with her half-sister, Elise. But what stabs deeper than betrayal is their reaction. Calm, smug, as if they'd planned it. Elise simply says, "You always get everything, Liv. It was time someone took something back." The camera of her life freezes here, on that moment of shock, silence, and collapse. Olivia says, "That's when the softness in me died, and something else started to grow." She doesn't cry when she tells the story, not anymore. The tears dried up long ago. Around the same time she packed a single suitcase, left the apartment without a word, and disappeared from both of their lives. She quit her job 2 weeks later, deleted her social media, cut ties with mutual friends, and vanished. I became no one. For a while, that's exactly what I needed. What Olivia doesn't say, not right away, is that she didn't vanish to heal. She vanished to plot, because what Mason and Elise did wasn't an accident. It wasn't passion or weakness, it was strategy. I used to think love made people better. But for some of us, love is just another weapon, a tool, and I was naive enough to hand them mine. It hadn't started with Mason, or even Elise. The rot had begun years earlier. Olivia's mother had always been hard, especially on her. Elise, the golden child, came from a different father and lived most of her life draped in praise and leniency. Olivia, on the other hand, was raised on rules, expectations, silence. She was told to be strong, to be smart, to be perfect. I used to wonder why Mom hated me so much. Then I realized I reminded her of herself. So Olivia became the achiever, the responsible one, the careful one. She built a life out of self-denial. Mason was supposed to be the reward for all that discipline, her happy ending. He was charming, ambitious, devoted, or so she thought. What Olivia didn't know then was that Elise had been circling for months, that Mason had secrets even darker than infidelity, that her life was a chessboard, and she'd been cast as the fool. I could have screamed, I could have fought, but instead I walked away, because they didn't just want to hurt me, they wanted to watch me break, and I wasn't going to give them that. What they didn't realize was that when Olivia left, she wasn't running. She was rebuilding, and now, 3 years later, she's ready to burn their world down, piece by piece. And she's going to start with the truth. I wasn't always like this. I used to believe people could be good. I used to trust. That version of Olivia feels like a ghost now, a softer shape in her memory, blurred around the edges. But she remembers the outlines. She grew up in a house where love had conditions. Her parents split when she was 5. Her father remarried quickly, a woman named Nadine with a sharp tongue and a fragile ego. A year later, Elise was born. Olivia's mom kept her, raised her alone, while Dad started a new life across town. And though they shared the same blood, Olivia and Elise were raised in 2 different worlds and 2 different sets of rules. Dad played the part of weekend parent. Guilt made him generous. He gave Elise all the things I never asked for, but always noticed. Still, they grew up together. Sleepovers, summer trips, awkward joint holidays, and somewhere along the way, a quiet rivalry formed. Not overt, not hostile, but ever present. Elise was the wild spirit, spontaneous, pretty, charming, unpredictable. Olivia was the classic firstborn, composed, driven, always one step ahead. She was the storm, I was the shelter. By the time they were in their 20s, Olivia had carved a life out of hard work and control. Law school, long nights, clean lines. She made a name for herself as a rising defense attorney. Sharp, articulate, with a reputation for protecting people who'd been failed by the system. Elise, she drifted. She had dreams of music, moody acoustic sets in downtown bars, poems scribbled in half-full journals. But she also had a habit of imploding just when things started to go well. A DUI at 24, a string of toxic relationships, credit card debt. Olivia bailed her out more than once. I kept thinking I could save her, that if I gave her enough chances, she'd stop burning the bridges between us. Then came Mason. They met at a legal charity fundraiser. He worked in tech, consulting for a startup with Olivia's firm. He was warm, easy to talk to. He listened, not the polite kind of listening, but the focused kind, like she was the only voice in a crowded room. He made her laugh when she forgot how. He made her believe she didn't always have to be the strong one. Mason was different from the men Elise chased. He wasn't a fixer-upper or an artist with chaos under his tongue. He was grounded, successful, gentle, steady. For the first time, I thought, maybe I could rest. They dated for 4 years, slow, intentional. He supported her career, encouraged her to take time for herself. They had routines, Thursday dinners, Sunday hikes, late-night grocery store runs. Her mother approved. Even Elise seemed happy for them, or so Olivia thought. She offered to sing at the wedding, said it would mean something, sister to sister. I believed her. Her mother didn't. Watch your sister, she said once, cutting into a roast during a rare civil family dinner. She wants what you have. She always has. Olivia brushed it off. That's cruel, she'd replied. She's trying. But now she wonders, was she defending Elise or defending the image she'd built of her? The one where love was enough, where loyalty was returned, where family could heal. I didn't see the cracks because I was too busy covering them. Looking back, the signs were there. Little things. The way Elise lingered too long at brunches. The way she once joked, if Mason had a brother, I'd steal him in a second. How she started texting him about surprise party ideas, even when Olivia hadn't mentioned wanting one. The time she borrowed Olivia's favorite red dress, the one Mason had complimented, and kept it. Olivia ignored it all, because to admit the truth meant dismantling everything she thought was safe. And then came that day. The day she walked in early from work, arms full of takeout, smiling, already planning a movie night, and found the people she trusted most tangled in her sheets. They didn't flinch, no shame, no panic, just a smug, silent triumph in Elise's eyes. Mason didn't even speak, and Elise, with a calmness that chilled her to the bone, said, "You always get everything, Liv. It was time someone took something back." That was the moment I understood. They hadn't betrayed me in a moment of weakness. They'd made a choice, together. After that, Olivia vanished, packed a suitcase, left her keys on the counter, erased her digital footprint, took a job under a different name in another city, not to escape, to prepare, because Olivia Carter no longer believes people are good. She believes people are predictable, and that makes them easy to destroy. I walked in on the death of my own future. It was raining the day everything ended. A late spring storm had blown in fast, turning the streets slick and shadowed. The sky was a bruised gray, spitting lightning that made the power flicker as Olivia drove the familiar route home. She wasn't supposed to be there. She was heading back only because she'd forgotten her laptop on the kitchen counter. She had a hearing early the next morning and couldn't risk showing up unprepared. I remember thinking I'd just run in, grab it, and leave, Olivia says. I didn't even take off my coat. She parked crookedly, engine still running, and jogged through the downpour, shoes splashing through shallow puddles. The building was quiet when she unlocked the door and stepped inside, shaking rain from her hair. And then she heard it. Faint, rhythmic noises from the bedroom. At first, she thought Mason was watching something. He sometimes played videos when he couldn't sleep. But the sounds were different, real. Olivia's breath caught in her throat as she stepped further down the hallway, every sense sharpening like a blade. That's when she saw it. Elise's bra, pale silk and damp from the rain, lying discarded on the hardwood floor. I knew, Olivia says quietly. I knew, but I didn't want to. I wanted a different explanation. Her hand shook as she pushed open the bedroom door. Mason was there. Elise was there. Twined together in the bed Olivia had bought, the sheets Olivia had chosen, in the room Olivia called hers. They didn't scramble or try to hide. They didn't even pause. And when they finally looked up and saw her standing there, neither of them looked sorry. Elise smirked. You don't deserve him, Liv, she said, her voice soft and deliberate. You never deserved what you had. Mason sat up, unhurried, his dark hair falling into his eyes. This was always going to happen, he said, like it was some inevitable fact. Like Olivia was the fool who hadn't seen it coming. They acted like I was the intruder, Olivia says, like I was the outsider in my own home. Something inside her broke. She couldn't scream, couldn't move. She just stood there, rooted in place, feeling the walls close in as Elise leaned into Mason's shoulder, her expression a mixture of pity and triumph. Olivia didn't remember walking out. One moment, she was frozen in the doorway, and the next, she was outside in the storm, the cold rain soaking her clothes, her hair plastered to her face. She sank to the pavement beside her car and sobbed until her throat was raw. It wasn't just betrayal. It was annihilation. When Olivia called her father later that night, voice shaking, he was quiet for a long time before he finally said, Liv, you need to be the bigger person here. I can't take sides. Her mother was less measured. Furious, yes, but powerless. I told you to watch her, she snapped, as though the warning could somehow dull the wound. The rest of the family, cousins, aunts, family friends, offered the same useless platitudes. Let it go. Don't let them win. You're better than this. But no one understood. They didn't just cheat, Olivia says. They humiliated me. They smiled when they saw me standing there. They broke something in me, something I would never put back the same way. The following days blurred together. She avoided her phone, let messages pile up. Mason sent only one text. I'm sorry you found out this way. Elise sent none. Neighbors whispered. A mutual friend showed up at her door with a bottle of wine, offering condolences Olivia couldn't stomach. Every corner of her apartment was a graveyard of memories she couldn't look at. Framed photos, wedding plans, the dress hidden in the back of the closet. She packed a suitcase on the fourth day. She didn't think. She just moved. She stuffed clothes into a duffel, left her keys on the kitchen counter, and walked away from everything she had built. Because staying meant accepting their version of the story, that she was disposable, that she had lost. But Olivia Carter wasn't done. Not yet. I didn't want revenge. I wanted to forget. But forgetting never came. After the betrayal, Olivia didn't scream. She didn't throw things. She didn't seek closure. She disappeared. She deleted every social media account within 3 days, changed her number, moved out of the apartment she once shared with Mason, and left the city behind like a dead limb. I thought if I removed myself from the places they touched, I could cut the infection out. But grief doesn't respond to logic. It doesn't evaporate because you will it to. For a while, Olivia drifted. She stayed in a furnished rental under a friend's name, woke up in the middle of the night, choking on rage, sweating through unfamiliar sheets. Her phone stayed silent. The only thing that ever buzzed were email alerts from vendors still assuming the wedding was happening. She ignored them all. 2 months later, Mason and Elise went public. The first photo was posted to Elise's newly curated Instagram feed. A sun-drenched shot on a boat, Mason at the helm, Elise curled into his side, both of them smiling with that effortless, smug glow that made Olivia's stomach turn. The caption read, "Sometimes the wrong love leads you to the right one." More followed. Weekend trips, studio sessions, Mason bringing Elise coffee backstage, Elise singing acoustic covers at trendy venues, her voice silky and haunting. Olivia clicked on one video out of curiosity and heard the opening bars of her wedding playlist. The exact songs Olivia had spent hours selecting, curated with care and meaning. Now, Elise was using them on stage, twisting them into something new. I'd built a future, and she was using it like a costume, like it had always been hers. Still, Olivia said nothing. She ghosted friends who asked too many questions, blocked mutuals who shared Elise's posts. She got leaner, sharper, ran until her lungs burned, started boxing, switched firms, one with fewer office happy hours, and no history with Mason. The world believed she had vanished, but Olivia was watching. She saw every post, every smirk hidden behind captions. She knew when Elise signed with a minor record label that catered to indie female artists. Knew when Mason's startup closed a new round of funding, and saw her name buried in the paperwork. At first, she thought it was a mistake, a leftover document from when she'd helped Mason with a pitch deck during their engagement. But then she dug deeper. Her credentials, her legal summaries, even a copy of her old client list, repurposed and rebranded. Mason had used her work to build his company's credibility with investors without her permission, possibly even forged a signature on a non-disclosure agreement. And Elise, she was too smug not to know. Olivia found an interview clip where Elise was asked about the sudden success of her image rebrand. She laughed and said, "Let's just say I've got leverage. A girl's gotta be strategic." That was when Olivia stopped trying to forget. She bought a burner phone, created encrypted folders, started documenting everything, screen captures, financial records, timelines. Her lawyer's mind switched back on, not emotionally, but mechanically, surgical. She kept a clean profile at the new firm, quiet, competent, efficient, no drama, no connections. Her apartment was spotless, minimalist. She didn't let anything in that wasn't useful. I reinvented myself, not as someone stronger, but as someone calmer, someone who could wait. She made herself invisible, but not forgettable. She monitored Elise's tour dates, Mason's product launches. She tracked the shift in their tone once the public novelty wore off. One night, at a networking event, Olivia almost skipped. She saw Elise across the room, radiant in a wine-colored dress, laughing with someone from the label. Olivia stayed back, mostly in shadow, watched how Elise scanned the room like a predator, how her smile faltered for a moment when their eyes met. Elise made her way over eventually. The room was loud, but their conversation was private. Two women, side by side, barely moving their lips. "You were always too soft to win," Elise said, lifting her glass in a mock toast. Olivia tilted her head, voice cool and low. "Soft doesn't mean stupid, and I was done being soft." Elise blinked, taken off guard for just a second, and Olivia saw the flicker of something beneath the bravado. Not fear, not yet, but awareness. Later that night, Olivia opened her laptop and updated the timeline in her files. Labeled it Phase 2, Begin Pressure. Because now, it wasn't just about justice. It was about clarity. They had stolen her voice, her work, her future, turned her life into an anecdote, a stepping stone for their own gain. But Olivia Carter was no longer interested in surviving. She was building a case, one that didn't end in court, but in ruin, one mistake at a time. I smiled as I watched their world implode, not because I enjoyed it, but because it was justice. Olivia never raised her voice, never touched a weapon, never even used her real name. Her revenge came with timestamps and PDFs, witness affidavits, metadata trails. It started with the documents, the ones Mason used to secure funding for his tech venture. For months, Olivia combed through the filings, comparing signatures, cross-referencing emails, building a case like she would for any client. Except this time, she was her own client. She confirmed it in a moment of eerie calm. Mason had forged her signature on 2 real estate disclosures, using her bar credentials and former employer's name to bolster legitimacy. That alone was grounds for fraud, federal charges, civil liability, enough to cripple his business if exposed. Next came Elise. It turned out one of Elise's breakout tracks, the one that got her the label deal and viral traction, wasn't entirely hers. Olivia recognized the melody almost instantly. It belonged to Natalie, a mutual friend from college. Olivia remembered a drunken night years ago when Natalie played it at a party. Elise had been there, tipsy, nodding along. She never gave credit, never even asked. Olivia reached out to Natalie anonymously, sent a clip, attached studio recordings, helped her submit a copyright claim, all without revealing who was behind it. Then, the final act. She tipped off Mason's investors, sent them a secure folder through a burner account, financial records, fraudulent filings, and side-by-side comparisons of Olivia's real signature and the forged one. She waited 2 weeks. The silence was the hardest part. Then the cracks began. First came the headlines. Indie label drops artist over copyright dispute. Elise's deal was terminated, publicly, harshly. A clause in her contract required her to pay back advances. Her tour dates were cancelled. Sponsors pulled out. 2 days later, Mason's company was hit with a formal lawsuit by one of his early investors. Allegations of fraud, misrepresentation, and forged legal documentation. His accounts were frozen pending investigation. Olivia sat in her spotless apartment, coffee in hand, and watched their lives unravel. It wasn't pleasure she felt. It wasn't glee. It was equilibrium. This wasn't revenge, she says. It was restoration. They took from me, and I simply balanced the scale. But she wasn't done. Buried in one of her old inboxes, Olivia had found an email from Elise, a drunken, unsent draft from years ago, written during the early stages of Olivia's engagement to Mason. The subject line read, "I'm a terrible sister." In it, Elise confessed to a one-night stand with a musician she had met during a show. The date overlapped exactly with Olivia's engagement party. Elise had known it was wrong. She'd been so drunk, so lonely, so stupid, her words. She hadn't planned to tell Mason or Olivia, and yet she'd sent it, maybe by accident, maybe as a warning. Olivia had never responded. She had archived it, forgotten it, until now. She posted the email online through a third-party account. No context, no commentary, Just the message, raw, unedited, traceable only through Elise's past address. It spread like wildfire. Forums lit up, comment sections exploded. Elise's fans turned on her. A hashtag trended. By the end of the week, her streaming numbers plummeted. The label publicly distanced themselves from her. And Mason? He vanished from the press. His startup now synonymous with fraud. Olivia watched it all with clinical detachment. She had never laid a finger on them, never made a single threat, and yet they were both undone. Late one night, Olivia heard pounding at her door. She opened it to find Elise on the verge of collapse, makeup streaked, mascara running down her cheeks, her eyes red-rimmed and wild. "You did this to me!" Elise screamed. "You destroyed my life! Why would you do this to me?" Olivia stood in the doorway, calm, dressed in black, expression unreadable. "Because you weren't sorry," she said softly, "and I needed you to learn that taking from me has consequences." Elise's mouth opened, then closed. For the first time in years, she had no words. Olivia stepped back and shut the door, not with force, but with finality. On the other side, Elise crumbled. And Olivia? She didn't look back. Because closure didn't come from apologies. It came from clarity. And justice, real justice, one wasn't loud. It was precise. There's no peace in destruction, but there's something like closure. The world didn't change when Olivia finished what she started. No angels sang, no banners unfurled, just silence, clean, final, and deserved. She didn't celebrate, didn't post cryptic quotes online or share sly smiles with people who would never understand. She just exhaled. Then, slowly, she began to rebuild. Olivia returned to therapy, not because she was broken, but because she refused to carry the weight any further. The revenge had been for her past. The healing, she realized, had to be for her future. I didn't want to become them. I wanted to become me again, the version of me they couldn't reach. She reconnected with her mother over coffee one Saturday morning. They didn't talk about Elise. They didn't need to. There was a quiet understanding between them now, an acknowledgement of how deep old wounds can go and how long it takes to close them. Her life became smaller, more private, but not colder. At work, she earned a promotion. Senior counsel. She took it without fanfare, but when she sat behind her new desk, she placed a framed photo beside her monitor, a picture of her from 5 years ago. Brighter eyes, softer shoulders, a woman who believed people could be good. She was once soft, Olivia says quietly. Now she cuts deep, but only when she has to. She began mentoring younger women at the firm, law students, first-year associates, clients in bad situations. She recognized the signs now, the ones she'd once ignored in herself. Self-doubt disguised as politeness, loyalty mistaken for love, silence mistaken for strength. Every Thursday night, she volunteered with a local domestic violence advocacy group, reviewing legal documents, helping women apply for restraining orders, custody protections, even job referrals. She never told her story. She didn't need to. Her presence said enough. You can survive this, and you can win. She started dating again. Carefully, slowly. No grand declarations, no white-hot passion, just coffee, then conversation. She asked better questions now, set clear boundaries. Love was no longer a fantasy or a reward. It was a choice, one she would make only if it felt like freedom, not sacrifice. As for Mason and Elise, Elise left town, quietly. Her social media presence vanished after a final, vague post about taking time to reflect and heal. Mason's startup crumbled, and he disappeared from the online world completely. No charges, just lawsuits and losses. Olivia didn't follow up, didn't check. I didn't want to know where they went, she says. I just wanted them gone. The void they left didn't ache. It didn't echo. It simply cleared space. And in that space, Olivia grew, not back into who she was, but into someone stronger, sharper, not hardened exactly, but aware. She still walks the line between compassion and caution. She still feels flickers of grief for the woman she used to be, the one who believed family meant safety and love meant truth. But she no longer bleeds for that girl. She honors her. She looks at the photo on her desk every morning before her first meeting. And sometimes she smiles because that girl didn't die. She evolved. And now Olivia Carter stands not in the wreckage of what was, but in the quiet, steady foundation of what she built in its place. I'm not proud of everything I did, but I'm proud of who I became. The camera lingers on Olivia, poised, still, her expression unreadable but not cold. There's no triumph in her eyes, no glitter of revenge, only clarity. She takes a breath, then speaks directly, voice calm, deliberate. They say revenge doesn't heal you. Maybe that's true, but for me, it was the scalpel that cut out the infection. I bled, yes, but I didn't die. I became someone I trust more than anyone, someone they can never touch again. She pauses, hands folded loosely in her lap. There's weight in her silence, not the kind that seeks attention, but the kind that says, I've carried heavier things than this. Behind her, the world moves on, the hum of the city, the faint buzz of life returning. But Olivia isn't lost in the past. She isn't haunted anymore. She's grounded, present, whole. She doesn't need to explain every choice she made. She doesn't need forgiveness. What she needed, she gave to herself. Power, autonomy, voice. And if they're watching this now, just know, you didn't break me. You built me. Sharper. Fade to black.